I think it's so important where we place our identity has such a huge impact on like where we rise and fall. And it goes back to the idea that if we don't place our identity in who we are as humans, as individuals, and we're constantly placing our identity in the what, which is, the badge on the sleeve, the school we get into, the grades, the GPA, whatever it is, there's always something that's going to have some type of influence or impact on that outcome. And when you're placing your identity on the what and giving somebody control over that outcome, you are always going to fall short or empty at some point in your life. And you will fall empty if you don't have your own foundation planted firm in your own values and your own identity. You are going to struggle. So welcome back to the Change One, Change Thousands podcast, where we take real conversations and focus on real growth. Today, I have two incredible women with me, Caitlin, and then, of course, Cecilia Del Rio. Today, we're going to dive into societal pressures that we feel as women in different stages and seasons of our life, and what that looks like. But we're going to take the conversation from a place of identifying it, being real about it, talk about the truth inside it, but not falling victim to it, but really celebrating how we as women have found strength and courage to rise out of it and to continue to be a source of inspiration for ourselves, but the people around us. Because I think that we can look at societal pressures all we want, but I think we also have an accountability to how we choose to show up. And I think as strong women, I think it's just really important that we're also having real dialogue inside those struggles of finding who we are and who we've become on the other side of it. This topic is really important to me, and I think too, especially since this is such a evolution that's taken place in our ambassador program here in the Bay Area and also in our Butterway communities. It's different, right? And, Cecilia, you've been through the program for a couple years. And last time we talked, and before we got on the podcast last time, I asked you what was some of the pressures that you specifically as a high school female student athlete are being faced with right now. And do you remember at that time what you told me specifically?
I don't remember specifically.
You made a comment about, we go through all these social media trends, right? So we're going to speak more to the pressure of high school girls. And the reason why I bring this up is because I brought this up last night in the ambassador workshop, and the girls were nodding their head in agreement. But it was sparked and inspired by a conversation that me and you had. Mm-hmm. So, we're talking about the who versus what. It's a standard conversation that I am always pressing into because I think it's so important where we place our identity has such a huge impact on like where we rise and fall, right? So, and it goes back to the idea that if we don't place our identity in who we are as humans, as individuals, and we're constantly placing our identity in the what, which is, the badge on the sleeve, the school we get into, the grades, the GPA, right there is a whole nother ball of wax on when it comes to expectations. Yeah. It could be getting on the team or getting kicked off the team, the injuries you have, whatever it is, there's always something that's going to have some type of influence or impact on that outcome. And when you're placing your identity on the what and giving somebody control over that outcome, you are always going to fall short or empty at some point in your life. And you will fall empty if you don't have your own foundation planted firm in your own values and your own identity. You are going to struggle, right? So when we were talking about that last night, I made the comment about having the shirt on your shirt, the school name on your shirt in social media post, right? Mm-hmm. That was one of the biggest things you said. Well, right now, if I don't have a name on my chest and posting it on social media, it basically equates that I'm not succeeding. Yeah. I'm heading down a path that's not going to look good for my future. And I said that along with many other things, that the girls are being faced with. And when I said that specifically, I was thinking of you. And the girls were doing this. The senior was doing this very, very firmly. And I looked at her, I said, "Do you agree?" And she's like, 100%. So talk to me about that. I think that's one thing that was really near and dear to you. And maybe you don't feel that as much now on the other
Yeah.
side of it because you realize there's a different truth once you've got through the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is such a big, it's a trend, but why is that so important for the girl going through their senior year?
I think because I think it goes along with like if you are kind of like successful or not, you know, if you work hard or not, if you're smart or not, like depending also like maybe you do have a school on your chest, on your shirt, but is it a school with an acceptance rate that's super like high? You know, there's so many things that go into it with, you know, what's on like your shirt and your school that you choose. And I think that it goes with caring what other people think and what they might think of your school, what they might think of you, you know, the stereotypes and every single thing that goes with what school you choose and where you want your life to go and the grades you have. It's just, I think, at least for me, when I was doing the whole process, I was thinking, you know, what schools like I was applying to and like how they're viewed. And like Long Beach was the school I applied to and got into. And I wasn't ever really interested in going, but I knew that it was a harder school to get into. Mm-hmm. So that's what made me think maybe I should go there because, you know, people may think, oh, wow, she got into Long Beach. Like, that's so cool. Like, it's a good school. But then, like, I chose Northridge. And lots of people are either like, what's Northridge? Or, like, if they know it, it's like, yeah, like, I hear good things, but it's, like, obviously not that popular. So, yeah, that's what was it for me.
Did you, Caitlin, when you were in high school, was that as important as it is now?
I was going to say, actually, I feel like I have a lot of different experiences just because I saw all these things going on. I saw the trends of social media, how you're supposed to fit in, but I would choose to isolate myself. And it's not out of, oh, I'm so courageous, I'm not going to fit into the social norm. It's because it's also scary to be part of it. And so I chose to just not participate at all. I didn't post on social media. I didn't post what school I was going to. I made a barrier between me versus them in a way. So it's different hearing like, even when you're in it, you still feel separated. You still feel judged. It doesn't matter whether you participate or not.
So interesting. I mean, obviously, I'm growing up in a completely different generation. This did not, well, social media didn't exist. So I faced a different battle in high school than you're facing now or did face, because obviously you're not in high school, but it's such a thing. So for me, there is a status. It's a status-driven culture that we live in, right? It's the whole keeping up with the Joneses mindset. And I think my first question is, now that you're on the other side of it, what are your thoughts towards that now?
Honestly, now I just feel like I didn't need to really like have that thought in my head. Like I know it was gonna happen just because of how society is, but like now thinking about it, I'm just doing my own thing and what makes me happy, and I don't need to worry about how it's perceived to other people, and I think that should be for every girl or every person like going through that, like just knowing, you know, it's your school, your life, your journey. It's not, you know, if you're going to a UC, if you're going to a private school, like it doesn't matter really where you go, just as long as it's your decisions and your journey, your, you know, life.
Yeah, I think because that's one of the conversations that we hit on last night in the workshop is that I'm not saying don't chase those schools or don't, but you have to like reflect inside yourself and why are you chasing that specific school? So going back to how you were looking at Long Beach just because of the fact it gave you this, gave the outside impression that, dang, like she's good type of a thing. But that goes kind of in a way what I was saying about the who versus the what is if you would have chose Long Beach, you would have ended up in a place of complete emptiness because you're not following, you finally hit a dead end road because you're not following your path, right? Your purpose comes to a halt because you have no more momentum to keep feeding that. You start to wonder, and you get kind of aimlessly lost, which is why I think so many girls actually do change their school a year or two out instead of just staying on the path of just knowing that I'm going to walk in my lane. But that's hard.
Yeah.
So what do you tell your let's say your sister, your little sister, what do you tell the high school girl or the girl last night nodding her head in the conversation? I know you just touched on it a little bit, but specifically, what could you say to her to help her realize that it's wasted energy and it's actually wasted time? You don't get back.
I think going along with what I said about it being your life, your choice, and how you, like, where you want to put yourself, but just that, like, what other people think doesn't matter. That's something I've always had, and that's what we talked about in the last podcast too. It's like something I've always struggled with is always thinking, like, caring almost what other people think, and I don't think it's just me. I think other people, other girls go through that as well. But it's your journey.
I love that.
Just worry about yourself, not how other people are going to look at you, not even like your parents are going to like say, or your grandparents, or maybe who's paying for your college. It's your life.
So let's stay on the topic of schools, because even just the minor thing of having the shirt, that's one thing. But I think a lot of girls, and Caitlin, I think you can tap into this too really well. It's not just girls, this is girls and boys. Let's actually make that very clear, that they're choosing schools or careers to appease the parents or the grandparents. A lot of it has to do with culture, right? A lot of it has to do with what their older siblings did. And some people go to the same school because that's just the norm in their family. So how do you find the balance between respect for your culture, respect for your family, but finding your own path and, sometimes breaking the mold? Because that is a really big topic of conversation too. Do you want to take this, Caitlin?
Yeah. I mean, when I was going into college, I actually was going to major in environmental science. And that was something more so because I looked to my older sister and I kind of followed in her footsteps for everything. But it was also supported by my parents, and there was always a nudge to go into some sort of science or math, and that was the natural progression. My dad's an engineer. My brother was studying math. My sister was studying biology, environmental science, and so it was naturally the progression for me to go into the same. I went to Las Positas College, which is a community college here first. And that's where you sort of get to dive into your interests a little bit. And I took my very first marketing class. And I was like, that is where I want to be, because it connects the creativity that I've been looking for, and it bridges the gap between the creativity and the statistics, the logistics, all that research behind it. This is where I'm meant to be. And it was really hard for me to break and confront my parents, even though they weren't paying for my college or anything. It was just, what would they think of me? I'm breaking the generational, progression, right? And so it was more so, when I look back, it was more so the expectation that I put on myself rather than what my parents were actually doing. It was what I was telling myself. You should be fearful of this. Your parents aren't going to agree with this. Your grandparents who are paying for your college don't want you to go that path. And it's just all these fears and doubts that we naturally create for ourselves. And really, there was nothing stopping me. So I went into marketing, and I went to St. Mary's College, and that's what I pursued. And look at me now. Everything went well. There was no breaks in the family. At the time, it feels like it's all or nothing. But really, once you jump over that initial hurdle of fear, the possibilities are endless after that.
I absolutely love the fact that you brought that up, because as I was thinking about, where I'm hoping the conversation goes, is that that's kind of the accountability piece that I was talking about, is because as we are growing up, we get these little seeds that keep getting planted in, from our parents, from our aunties, for, all the influences that we really have and that we love and adore, right? And I don't think they're always from ill intent. I just think it's people talk about what they know, and they talk about their own truths and their beliefs. And a lot of times our values and what's important to us are literally shaped by those little planted seeds that just continue to grow over time, right? And so the fear, a lot of times, I think what happens is exactly what you just said, is the people around you that love you and adore you and only want the best for you. Really, if you come to them with a good reason that you are standing true in your own values and your own truth, 9 times out of 10, I think they're going to support you. But I think we get caught up in this idea, because of these little seeds that have been planted for so long, that we tell ourselves a different truth. And we are the ones, because of those expectations, that say it's not the right thing to do. Because I think as very intelligent, logical, strong women, whenever I get caught in that battle, and tell me if you agree or disagree, there's a logical part of my brain that says, no, this is fine. It's totally true. Why am I so afraid of that? That doesn't make sense. But then you got this emotional part of you that's like, no, it's not possible. It's not going to happen. They're going to judge me. They're not going to love me. They're going to do X, Y, and Z. Like, do you ever feel that tug of war?
Absolutely. All the time.
So you feel that too, Cecilia? I think on different levels of what you're going through. So that's, if we're able to tell anybody, like, do some self-reflection. And is the truth that you're believing really about that person that you want to blame, that it's them making us do this? Or is it just because you're not walking inside of courage to own your truth and to have a mature conversation about it, to give them an opportunity to love you where you're at, right? Now, I'm not saying that's going to be a very blanket statement, because I know some cultures run deep. But I think for the most of us, what you just described, I think, is more of our situation, right? So how did you get to the other side of that?
Well, I had an amazing boyfriend that supported me as well. And that made it a little bit easier for that reassurance. But I went into this conversation with my parents and are like, this is what I'm thinking of. I don't want to go to Monterey Bay anymore. I want to go more into the marketing side, considering this thing. And really, it's just that easy. People will give what they know. And the opinions and the information that they had been feeding me was not because that was my only option. It was because my dad came from that background, and he thinks that I would do well there, but you can only speak on what you know. And we actually had a conversation about that last night, in a personal circumstance where I was getting a lot of opinions on it. You repositioned it on me and asked, well, how did you present yourself in that situation? Did you leave a gap where those opinions could be inserted because you were coming at it with uncertainty or fear? And usually those people in your inner circle will fill that gap because they do care about you. And so I think the piece there is to be secure and confident in your decision. And that's how you cut off all the other noise, I call it.
This would be where we insert the sound effect. That probably got cut out of the part of the recording, but we were making jokes about having the sound effects when, like, the mic drop moment kind of comes in. But yeah, no, that's so well said. And I think can be a nugget for somebody to take away, because people smell fear. And if especially strong-minded individuals, when they give their opinions, most of the time it's coming from a place of care and love. But I think also sometimes, no, not just sometimes, a lot of times, where they're insecure, also gets pressed upon us because they don't want us to repeat their past, or they don't want us to repeat their mistakes. But I think the part is, if we can walk in with that certainty, and we can walk in to these conversations where we're seeking love and approval, but we are got our feet planted, we're the ones that start to inspire the conversation. That's all they're wanting to know, right? So if we match their fear, they're going to speak into that fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you relate to this on did you face any challenges what are you going to study? Do you want to share?
My major is liberal studies, but I'm part of this program. It's called ITEP, and it's like basically a teaching program. You're basically learning how to be a teacher.
I love it. You're going to be a great teacher.
Thank you.
But my question is are you going to become a kid teacher because it's the right path for you, or because that was a teaching brought down?
Honestly, I think my parents have been very supportive of what I wanted to do, just as long as I go to college. Mm-hmm. So they've been supportive when there's like times where I was like, I want to be a lawyer, or times I want to be a nurse. Like, they've always been supportive of that. So I've never felt like I've had to specifically be something. But I have felt that where like I had to go to college. Like, there was also a time where I was interested in cosmetology school and like going and pursuing that, and my parents were immediately like, no, like, you're going to college. So I guess that's where I can kind of relate, because like, I do kind of have like that, my mom went to college, my dad went to college, and that's what they want. But my dad is an educator, but he's never like forced me to go down that path. If anything, he's kind of tried to encourage me not to. But yeah.
But I'm sure you've been inspired by your dad.
Yes, for sure. He's like my role model. I definitely look up to.
That's amazing. So what happens for the individual? What if you change your career?
Ooh, I don't know. I think
let me ask you this. Are you okay? Like, do you feel pretty determined that being a teacher is definitely your path? Because there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just really curious. Like, no, this is definitely, my heart bleeds for this. Or is it more of I'm interested, I'm curious, and I'm just taking steps of action because I know I have to go to college?
I think it is like my passion. I think I've always been drawn to it. Like, even when I was second guessing and thinking about being a lawyer and nurse, cosmetology school, I've always been brought back to just being an educator and teaching. So I definitely think that's like in my heart, but I am open to exploring like other things as well.
No, that's great. Because that's okay. I think that's another pressure that we get faced with, is that everything is so definitive. Right? And that's the other thing, talking to high school girls here, is that I have to know exactly what I'm going to study. And I'm like, no, that is absolutely false. You don't have to. If I was still doing exactly what I was doing when I was 20 years old, please help us all, because that's part of life and just the growth. And in fact, one of the girls brought up the word that she's what's one word that describes how you feel right now? She's like, I'm curious. And I'm like, that is beautiful, because that is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves, is just to simply be curious. And when we're stuck in this place of pressure that I need to do something right now, I need to decide, because I definitely can't commit to a school and a career and then change my mind, because then that means I didn't have it all figured out. When you're trying to create the perception that you will have it all figured out. But the truth is, you don't have it all figured out. There's no way you have it all figured out as an 18-year-old. Now, again, I was 18 one point. I felt like I had it all figured out. But on the flip side of it, even just 6 months past talking about the t-shirt, you're like, why? What? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So clarity comes in action. So it's just being curious enough. It's just being curious enough to take some steps. And if you choose your career, regardless of what it is, you get in a year or two and your position is changing, have the courage to step inside and change it. Don't do something just because you don't want to show face. Because I promise you in 5 years, 10 years, you are going to wake up extremely miserable because, again, you don't have any more momentum to feed that purpose and that passion. So it will stop if it's not your authentic path. And even for the person that is, like you're saying, genuinely following that path, I am a firm believer that if you are aligned with your values, your character, it's going to lead to that passion and that purpose, a meaningful life. But you wake up in a few years and you're getting a nudge to maybe change gears. That's okay. Because what I believe is that path took you to a point in your life, an intersection that was meant, but you had to walk through that pre-journey in order to prepare you to where that intersection is going to be. That's okay. Like nothing is definitive, right? So, well, for me, I would say God is, but that's not, the topic of this conversation, but it is, right? And so, but with that being said, I will just kind of poke in. How has, in where you stand today, Cecilia, and finding yourself, because you've been on a self-discovery journey for a couple years now, and I know the leadership program has been a catalyst to that. Caitlin, I know you are on a really deep dive journey for yourself right now, and you're also discovering who you are on the other side of this. And me, in my season, obviously I've had a lot more life and experiences to go through. I've had to navigate through. But even right now, I'm in a season where I'm coming on the other side of these preconceived social expectations that I, like you, Caitlin, I just remove myself. I would hide myself because I just didn't want to deal with it, right? Instead of just facing it. But I'm on the other side going, you know what? I'm done being hidden. Like, let's do this. So where has faith and values and maybe just your beliefs in any way have had a pivotal influence in where you both stand today?
I'd say within this past year, I started my faith journey in January. And really that stemmed from just being at rock bottom and finally deciding I don't want to live this way anymore. From being in a business where it feels like even though you're your own boss, really you're not. Your clients are your boss. And just feeling pushed around, being a people pleaser. And so really this stage in my life, I'm trying to figure out, or not trying, I am figuring out my identity right now. And who is Caitlin on her own? And who is Caitlin when she's showing up with people? And how to be that one, to be the same and to not please people and adapt my personality and not to be afraid anymore. And I think I was living a very fear-driven life of a lot of anxieties, afraid to step out of my shell. Being part of a business, which is you're kind of in the spotlight, but still hiding behind the camera. And so faith has really helped me develop that self-awareness and reflectiveness to be able to take accountability where I've fallen short and what I've done to contribute to this fear-based mindset. A lot of that looks like going to therapy now, going to church, studying the Bible, even studying Brene Brown. She talks a lot about shame and vulnerability and how on the opposite side of shame is vulnerability and being able to step into courage and compassion rather than in connection versus the disconnect and being fear-based. And so a lot of my transition has just been over the course of this past year, looking inward versus outward, which for 22 years I've been doing is just judging other people, being, I'm different than them. What's wrong with them versus what's wrong with me and what's in my heart?
So, okay, I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to poke a pin in that. So what about you? Like, where have you been where are your roots coming? Because I've also seen transformation inside of you. And I will go back to this. We talked about this on your first podcast, but the first question I ever asked you inside the leadership program was just the idea of why girls your age don't want to get inside their own thoughts. Remember that conversation?
Yeah.
And do you remember what you said to me?
I think I said something like, we're scared or something with,
Yeah, you just don't want to go there.
yeah, just,
Like
yeah.
you're afraid of what you're going to find, type of a thing, right? Which I know that's not you today.
No, yeah.
That is so not you today. Like, and I've watched this transformation. It's beautiful to witness this on the other side, right? But what was it? Like, where were you? And I'm not saying it's the GSW thing, because we can put a leadership program out there, but you're only going to get out of it what you're willing to put into it. So what was it for you that you were able to plant your roots in to become who you are still becoming on the other side of that fear-based mindset?
I think acceptance was my big thing.
Like that.
I had to accept, that this was my life and my reality. Like I need to be able to like step out of my comfort zone and, talk about those things I don't want to talk about and like almost break that barrier. And I agree. I now I find it easier to talk about things I don't want to talk about, and it wasn't easy to like get to this point because I was scared. Like I was fear. It was like me just like not wanting to be that vulnerable, and like I think the ambassador program has really, really helped me with that. The things we learned about. Yeah.
So it was a catalyst.
Yeah. And also the speeches, like when you're asking me to like say my speech, that helped a lot. Like even just talking about like, cause like, in school we talk about things like I'll present things that I don't really care about. Like, but I care about what I was talking about. And when you asked me to say the speech, and like, I was like, wow, like if I can say it to this whole room, like this is how I feel. Like, yes, it's for other people to hear, but it's about how I feel and what I thought. So it's kind of like helps with my self-esteem.
No, but that's the thing. And again, going back to Brene Brown, there's a quote that we actually use as the inspiration for the passion projects where, and I'm going to totally butcher this, but it's around the idea of like, have the courage to stand up inside your story and tell your truth, or spend your whole life hustling for your worthiness. And that's really what it is. We can stay hidden all we want, but it's the difference between, I think, all of us, not just us three, but all of us. Because I do believe with every bit of my heart that we have all been given exactly what we need to just shine and to walk inside our purpose with the confidence and the courage and all those things. But we do, just like I was talking about, we get the little seeds get planted within our family units. We get a lot of seeds planted outside, right? And if our feet aren't planted, which a lot of times they're not, because it's so easy to get influenced, and it's so easy just to fall in line with the flow of traffic rather than stand on the outside and go against the grain a little bit. So, but the difference is just the courage. Yeah. The courage, because you didn't have to do all that and force you, but you had the courage to stand up and tell your story. You had the courage to stand up and tell your truth, and I'm not saying like you air all the laundry of every adversity that you've ever gone through. I'm not saying that that's somebody's remedy, because I don't think all of our stories are intertwined and there are things that should stay intimate. However, inside those situations, you can still stand up and tell your truth in your intimate circles. It doesn't have to be broadcasted like this on a stage, right? So, but it is the courage. Courage is it's the intersection. It's the bridge from one point to the other. And the more you do that, and the more you do it again, you start to realize that it isn't as scary. And it actually feels good to speak your truth. And it actually is like this, it's like that spark that gets lit inside us when we have the courage to stand up, right? That's what I was going to come back to with you, is that was, I think, watching you from the outside. You had the courage. No matter how scared you were, you had the courage to actually put your foot, tip your big toe in the water. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not that cold.
Absolutely.
You know? What's interesting is both of you said the exact two words that have been my thing. Obviously courage, right? But faith has been a big thing for me. Anybody that knows me knows that that is like my lifeline and my rock. But it's been, I look at it more of this ongoing journey, because I think too, when you step inside faith, we expect immediate results on the other side. And it's just learning to accept. It's learning to accept where I am and figuring out what I can do actively inside it with a little bit of courage and just to be okay with it. I am where I am for a reason. I've gone through what I've gone through for a reason. I'm around the people I'm around for a reason. And, you know, it's one of those things that I can either use it to my advantage and use it as momentum and energy to push me forward. And also just accepting the fact, because one thing that has always been a battle for me is the idea of perfectionism. You know, that goes back to a societal pressure that we have to have it all figured out. We talked about that. We have to have it all put together, right? We have to look like we're put together. We have to, and I think that becomes more of it becomes our own enemy, right? What I learned inside of perfectionism is that, well, first of all, it's very toxic, but the less I started to worry about the perfectionism inside it for my own benefit, the more I started to realize that the judgment on the outside didn't exist as much. So going back to what you said, Caitlin, there is a lot of inner reflection I think we need to go through when we look at all these outside pressures. Is it the judgment from the outside, or is it our own judgment? And inside perfectionism, I think it's a lot of our own. It's a lot of the work that we have to go through instead of pointing the finger to say, well, if I do this or I don't show up in this way, they're going to judge me. Well, we're our first critic at every gateway. So I think if we can work through that portion of it, then our view of everyone else doesn't really matter as much. It's flipping the switch. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what else what is another societal pressure that we haven't really touched on that you think is important for somebody that's getting ready to graduate high school?
I think what I said earlier also about, you know, making friends, and like I started kind of like when I was thinking about college more and that this is real, this is actually happening, I started to feel more like insecure.
No, this is real.
No, like it's real life.
Really happening? Wait, touch the mic.
I kind of started feeling insecure about myself because like I was thinking, how am I going to be towards other people? Like, how are they going to think of me? Like, even when I was down in orientation, like I was finding it a little bit hard talking with certain people because like, I was thinking, was it me? Like, why aren't they wanting to talk to me? Like, what, it's my personality? Like, you know, I think that's mostly why I'm scared, like, about making friends, because of like that insecurity of like how I am towards other people, like how they view me. Now it's not them viewing my college. Now it's how they're viewing me as a person.
How do you hope people view you?
I hope people view me as like obviously nice, kind, but I think like I want them to view me as mature, and that, you know, like we can have serious conversation, like taking me seriously, but also like not too serious to where like you think I'm a mean person. Like just a kind overall person, I guess.
So when you talk about the insecurities, you say the insecurities I have.
Yeah.
Okay, now what is your truth? Like, what is it that you tell yourself that they do view you as? What goes through your head? Like when you go to that orientation and you're like, why don't they want to talk to me? What is it about me? Like, because you made a comment like that's insinuating how you think or believe they look at you. So that's what I want to know. Like, what was going through your mind?
Well, I was just thinking like am I like an awkward person? Like, do I not make them feel comfortable? Like, is it maybe just they don't want to have conversation with me because they're just like, I don't know, they just don't feel like they're comfortable with me, or not necessarily because like they're a new person, but so I'm not expecting comfortability like right away, but you know, I just want to be someone that you can just talk to. And so
at your heart of heart, like peel away like the interaction with everybody else. Like be really truthful to yourself right now. Do you think you're that person, or do you think you're the person that you really want people to see you as? Like be honest with yourself, and it's, you know, it's okay to say something bold and beautiful about yourself.
I think I'm in between because like I said earlier, I feel like I kind of wait for people to approach me first. So maybe that doesn't always come off as, you know, being easy to talk to, you know. And that's something I've always faced, even with like soccer and joining new teams, like even just getting to know my teammates. I wanted them to talk to me first and approach me because I do think I'm like a person that's like that they can talk to very easily. So I think I'm in between.
Maybe that in between is just you gaining the confidence to believe the truth that you know deep inside you actually does exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I will tell you the one thing, and I've said this to you many, many times, every time we've done a workshop, you're like the old soul in the room. So it's interesting that you actually said that you want to be looked at as mature because check. Like from my perspective, I always looked at you as that person. You're not the high school senior that was sitting in the room or the junior that was sitting in the room. I've always have the impression that you've always given me is you're wise beyond your years. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because how you want to be seen is how you are seen. Now, I think the one thing that we have to be careful with and walk inside our own truth is, does that mean it's right for everybody? No. And that's, I think, when you walk into a room of new people, we want to be accepted by everybody. And I think that's where we get caught up, is thinking that everybody needs to like me and everybody needs to connect with me. But when you go off to college, if you stay true and you show up with the courage that I know you already have to be like, this is who I am, you're going to, the right people are going to come to you like a magnet. The awkwardness comes into play when you try to be something else to appease the masses. And I think that's where we go wrong, because especially for people pleasers, that's where we go wrong, is because we want, it feels good to be liked, you know? But I think if somebody doesn't choose to talk to us, it's not that they don't like us. It's just they're not our people. And quite frankly, if everybody wanted your time and attention, you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Because then you're not going to be able to show up. So I think embracing who you are, because what you want your legacy to be is your legacy. That's why I keep bringing you into conversations and I keep sitting down with you. And it's, you know, you do give off a different light in the room. So just be you. And over time, as people get to know you, it's totally fine. And I think if more of us could actually, and this, I'm saying this because it's something I'm learning. So I think if we have the courage to stand up in that kind of a space, we are going to inspire the people around us to do the exact same thing, because we're all just trying to, I think we're just all trying to appease the masses. Going back to the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I relate to you a lot about just going into a room and feeling like, I think what it comes from is having our own expectation of how this is going to go. I'm going to make new friends here at my orientation. This is what the experience is supposed to be like. I'm going to meet my best friend and she's going to be with me for the rest of the school year. And it's the expectations that we put on ourselves that really hurt us, because if I go in there and I'm like, I want to meet friends and the conversations don't go the way I want to, I feel awkward, people aren't coming up to me, then I will use that as, see, I was right. They don't like me. I'm I'm too quiet, it's because I don't go up to them. And it's self-deprecating because we have this expectation of what it's supposed to look like, and we feed into that versus going into it. And that's one of the values of Girls Soccer Worldwide, is being open-minded, of just like, we'll see what happens. Like, maybe I'll find a friend, or let me just be in this moment and enjoy it. And that's where I have to work a lot too, is just, let's see how it goes.
Just be curious. And here's the thing. What's the purpose of an orientation?
Figuring out your school.
Had nothing to do with friends. So the point you make is really good. It's understanding what the expectation is in that moment, which comes back to just being present. But there's a phrase that I heard that I cannot unhear, and it's expectations kills relationships. What I was thinking about when you were talking is expectation also kills future relationships, if you think about it, because it's always going to lead to disappointment. So every experience that you go through, Caitlin, and a reminder for me that I think the biggest thing is obviously being okay, accepting whatever the situation is, but instead of having expectations, to simply be curious of what is on the other side of that door and what is meant for us, and everything else will come. What about the girl that's in college? I think the thing that's important is that this is also great seeds. We're talking about planting seeds for Cecilia, but the girl that's in college, the girl that might be getting ready to graduate from college, like, what transformations or pressures were you feeling at that point that maybe now you have a different perspective on?
I feel like something that we haven't touched on is image and status. And that's a big one while you're in college and out of it.
Because it doesn't matter what age. Caitlin, you and I have had these conversations, so this is going to be fun.
Yeah. In college, it really comes up because now you're in a setting where you're in a classroom. You do have to be vulnerable, to raise your hand, to present in front of the class. And that's something that I really struggled with, because you're looking at all your peers who seemingly are judging you. At least that's what I tell myself. And as a woman, it really comes down to how you look. And I keep talking about Brene Brown because that's the information that I'm absorbing. But in her TED Talk, where she first talks about vulnerability, she was saying that afterward she felt a lot of shame. And people had their reactions to her were not about her intellect. They were not about what she was actually saying. All of the haters in the comments were talking about her weight, how she looked. And after hearing that, in my careers in social media, I look at a lot of the comments on social media that involve women as the forefront. And you just see all the comments about what they look like. I saw one about Greta Thunberg. I think that's her last name. She had just come back from Israel after being captured, and all the comments were about her looking like homeless. Does she shower? Just about her image, not about what she was actually there and the cause that she was standing up for. And I think it's just so interesting what society paints what a woman should be. And it really feeds into our insecurity of feeling like we do have to show up perfect.
There is a beauty standard. I know that comes culturally, but I think there are expectations. We have the trolls, we have all of those, which is a social media perspective. But I think it's just, look at magazines. They've been airbrushed for how long, right? And kudos to the women that finally stood up to that, to say, no, you're not airbrushing my body. Like, we're not doing that. So that's been going on for decades, even before social media came to play or YouTube came to play. So why do you think that? And how can we stand above that and, stand strong in our truth?
I think that comes from the comparison of women and what we do to each other. And
I'm glad you say that, because one of my questions I was going to ask before we end is how can we be a part of changing the culture.
Yeah. As much as men paint us in a way and that expectation, I think we do it to ourselves as women, and we rank each other based on how we look. Since I'm looking for a job right now, I'm going to the park a lot, and there's a lot of high schoolers there, and so I pick up on conversations. And a lot of it has to do on ranking other girls in their class. What assets does she have? The physical. Where does she buy her clothes? All those things that make up your image. And it's not the guys doing it, it's the girls. And so there's this societal expectation within girls that you have to always do more than each other. You have to outlook each other, put your image together so that you can get the guy. And so really, I think we do it to ourselves. And I don't know how you feel about that since you're more in it. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely do think it is ourselves because like what you brought up, like that kind of like you're making yourself like more worried than you need to be. Like just like stressing too much about an outfit or like with me it was like I was like thinking while she was talking
Your mind was like
like even just coming down to like the little thing of like repeating an outfit, like, and if people are gonna notice it, it's just like I don't know, just like those things like what are people gonna think of me, like am I like they're gonna think I look like I don't wash my clothes, like they're not gonna like me, like I don't know, they're gonna think I'm ugly, like because like it is true, like how for women your looks are just so important because that's how you're viewed, because immediately if someone's not like thinking you're attractive or whatever, they may not take you seriously or respect you, especially like also too like how you're dressed. And yes, it does have to do with culture, but so that's why I think for me in school, like when I brought up the like repeating an outfit, like I didn't want people to think that like I'm lazy and like I'm ugly, you know?
Mm-hmm. So interesting because somebody on the outside can be like, that is the most pettiest thing I've ever heard. No, but it's real. It's the real situation. Yes, it is petty. Like, let's call it what it is. But the part of actually, I think when we're trying to find solutions to stuff, like, yeah, state the truth. It's on the top of the surface. But I'm also a big believer that what we put our energy to on the top of the surface, it could be emotions, it could be sad, it could be whatever it is. You got to get to the root of why. So let's talk about why. Why? Because I do agree with you, Caitlin, 100%. I'm not saying men are innocent in that, but men don't get caught up in the details that we get caught up into. We're very emotionally driven. We need acceptance and validation differently than a lot of men. Men can compartmentalize. It's like the big joke is like they've already moved on from the conversation. They're like, I don't even know what you're talking about right now. Well, you know when. Mm-hmm. So, and again, it's not a blanket statement towards everybody, but we can do a lot better job of supporting and loving our fellow females so much better. But let's talk about why. If you think about like the fear of judgment, I already said that if we can stop judging ourselves, that's half the battle. But the reality is that there are other people that are going to judge, right? But we talked about this last night in the workshop. Why do people judge? Like truly. The more secure I am, the more I have my feet planted in who I am and where I place my identity, I judge less. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So why do women do that to each other? Like, this is real conversation. Why do you think that?
I mean, you know, like your mom always tells you or whoever is like, they're just saying that because they're jealous. But I think it is a little bit of jealousy.
Yeah. But why are they jealous?
Because, well,
what creates jealousy?
Insecurity.
So I think if we can peel back the layers and understand, okay, if they're going to judge us, so what if I wore the same pants yesterday? I just didn't feel like one. I didn't feel like looking for another pair. Let's be real. How many times have I wore these pants? They're comfortable, right? So, but I think if we can peel back the layers and realize that when they're throwing that judgment or they're throwing that jealousy, it's really their own insecurity that is speaking from a place of just trying to feel better within themselves, right? Yeah. And I think two things happen for me. One, I realize it's not about me because my business isn't really their business. But the reason they're making it their business is because they don't want to get inside their thoughts. They don't want to get inside and do the self-reflection and do the work to actually get their feet planted in the ground and be strong themselves. It's a lot harder to have the courage to step up inside and actually do the work, right? We know it feels 100 times better on the other side, but it's not easy because you have to have the courage to get outside of the lane and do something different. So one, I realize it isn't about me, but the other part is I go to that place of compassion and realize, does that person just actually need love? Is that person not seen? Is that person actually in a place of emptiness? Because yeah, it could be choices. And yes, they still have accountability in that choice to judge or jealous or to act like a fool, towards whatever they're trying to throw on me. But I think that compassionate part of me kicks in and just wants to love them, because I think it goes back to other conversations that we've had, is that what's missing is just feeling seen, and what's missing is feeling loved. And I think that is the root. Now, is it our responsibility to make it better for them? No. But can we not personalize their issue and just be kind back?
Mm-hmm.
Are you picking up what I'm throwing
Yeah.
down? Like, what are your thoughts to all that? It's
I think
flipping
that's
the switch.
what the world needs. If somebody judged us and said a mean comment about the way we're appearing, if somebody said you're wearing the same jeans, imagine if we flipped that and, I don't know, take it as a compliment. Kindness. Oh, I like your jeans too.
Actually, thanks for noticing me today.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the power that we have to look at it from a different perspective and to know that that is not about us. And I think that is how we rise above all the pressures that we feel. And again, we always talk about the flame. We always talk about the change one, change thousands. We always talk about, in fact, there was a proverb that we threw out in the workbook yesterday where a candle doesn't lose any light by lighting another flame. And it's the essence of it. The world just gets brighter. So the question is, how bright is our own flame? How are we choosing to show up in those moments of fear, of being judged? Well, if we can have a different perspective and know, like, I'm going to do me today. Somebody wants to judge, well, I'm not going to take it personal, but I'm going to just throw it back. I'm going to throw back what I have to give, and that's my love and compassion, because that's what they obviously need. And if more of us actually did that, it's the ripple effect that can kind of come out from it, right?
Yeah, I love that, because I even think it goes back to, what are we feeding ourselves so that we could be able to show up for people in that way? Like, for me, I distract myself a lot. I'll go on social media. I know a lot of people go on that, and just, you can scroll and you start to gain things that you don't even consciously know, that you're shaming yourself. You're making yourself feel insecure because of the information you're consuming. What if you take off the social media? You sit with yourself. You read books. You have your affirmations, and you're able to spread that positivity. It's just that switch. It's the simple habits that we don't even pick up on because we're so deep into the routine of it.
Yeah.
Because that also goes back to, if we open that door for somebody to step in, like we open that door of weakness and doubt, that's like leaves the open window for them to crawl right in. So that's the accountability of we need to do our own inner work, which you have done, Cecilia. This all started going back to the original question that I asked you, which was, why don't you want to get inside your own thoughts? And I know that you're a different person on the other side of it, but you did work. It didn't just happen. You did the inner work. You did the self-reflection. You walked through this self-discovery journey that has led you to be who you are today. And the thing is, don't ever lose that, because you're going to come across challenges going to college. You know, it's the repeated behavior of building these different habits within ourselves that will help us to stay more consistent when we are faced with those types of things. And when you feel that coming back in, you have to have a checkpoint, right? So
Don't you think that's your North Star?
what is your North Star?
Empathy changes hearts, hearts change the world.
That's exactly what That is truly everything that we have been discovering in this conversation, which comes back to you and why we even, was approaching who you think you are. You have the ability to be that ripple effect for anybody else. And if you can do that to one person, that one person can change their perspective, look at it a little bit differently, have the courage to step inside themselves, to then not be afraid of that judgment because I'm not leaving room for it. What does that do to the next person? And then to the next person? That's how we change the culture. But we can't sway back and forth. We either have to make a choice to do it, because once we start swaying, then that trust of who people think we are changes. Right? What do you want to say to all that?
It's like those, how do you say? It's like a full circle moment or whatever. Just like everything
360.
just like coming together and making sense. It's like, it brings more peace, I think.
I like that. I'm fired up.
Doesn't it feel like we could just change lives? That
Yeah.
if we have more of these conversations and we take this outside, that it'll impact girls in the same way. Like what we feel right now.
This needs to be a roadshow. Kidding, but not kidding. What goes back to why the leadership program exists is if you don't have the courage to show up for yourself and discover who you are as a person first, then leader, how can you actually show up in the world and influence other people to do the same? It's like these false, hopes and personas. Because one thing I was going to say about the comparison trap is really what it is we all do it, but we only do it when we're not planted in our own values and our own identity. If you really look at patterns. So if I'm comparing myself to you, but you're comparing yourself to Cecilia, and Cecilia's comparing herself to somebody else, and so on and so forth, who are we actually comparing ourselves to? Because you're a false version of yourself. You're a false version of yourself because you're molding yourself to be like the person you're comparing yourself to, which there's no authenticity in that at all. So who is it that we're all comparing ourselves to? That is a scary space to actually be in, but that is the world that we live in. So that's why conversations like this are important. So that was beautiful. Any last thoughts, Caitlin, that you want to add?
Thinking about the girl specifically going into college and going into this environment, I think the one thing to take away from this is do the inner work and don't go to social media. Go and sit with yourself and discover who you are and figure out your values. I mean, Pamela has great workbooks and lessons that I'm sure she'll be sharing, that you can really discover this secure self, this identity that just will ground you. And I think that's the biggest thing, is start with that first step.
Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid of it. That's what you were saying, is it's scary. But I think you have to ask what you're afraid of. And I think when you start asking the real questions, you realize there's really nothing to be scared of. The logical parts of who we are.
Yeah.
What last thoughts do you have?
Well, I definitely feel like this conversation has helped me a lot with the nerves that I was having for college. So I think I'll take a lot of things like with social media and definitely like use these things we talked about for this next part of my life, because I really need to do that for myself, I think.
You're going to do incredible things.
Thank you.
Most definitely. And wear those jeans next day if you feel like you need to.
I will.
For me, because the one thing that we haven't touched on is women my age. And I know that in our program, you know, we really do focus on younger women. But the one thing that I always get told by a lot of women my age is they wish they would have had opportunities like this and conversation, because they just didn't exist for me. And I think the one thing that I've had, and I'm still trying to accept, going back to the word that you shared, is, you know, as women, we invest into our children or we invest into our career. And, you know, you get to a certain point in your life where you're like, well, there's no way to turn back. I'm already like halfway through, you know, whatever the dialogue or narrative that you have. And there's actually a study, I think, by Forbes out there that more women over 50 are more likely to hit the Forbes 500 women, I don't know exactly which one it was, in their 50s than any other time in their life. And the reason being is because if we make the choices and we embrace them, we're bringing so much more wisdom and so much more life experience and so much more knowledge of who we are to the table to really move a mountain, which is kind of ironic that, you know, co-founding a nonprofit in my, I don't know how, mid 40s. I mean, that's a lot. But I'm more fired up and feel more in tune with myself now than I ever have in my entire life. And a lot of it is just because of the I wish I would have known type of stuff. Wish I would have been a part of conversations like this more. But for me, it came down to courage. I didn't have the courage to step. I was terrified to do the ambassador program. I did everything in my power to talk us out of actually stepping in front of these girls because I was afraid of the judgment of high school girls. That's silly. Do you know what I mean? That's why it's like flipping the switch. And I think that going back to women, we do the same thing. Like you're talking about the college age, you're talking about high school age. It's no different from my age. It's the same thing. It's the same patterns that get in play. And I think a lot of women my age are on the other side of their journey, believing that they're not capable. Like, because they don't have the skills or they don't have no. Like now you're more capable than any other time of your life, but it's just making a choice. And it comes back to identity, right? My identity, is a mom, is a co-founder, is a friend, is all the things. But who am I as my own individual self? I think women our age still need to do the work and not be afraid of the social stigmas. And that's why I've been so afraid to get on social media, is because I do look different than I did in my 30s. And it's a hard place to be in. But again, that's why this conversation has been, even though I know it's been powerful for me, because again, I'm my own worst judgment. I'm my own worst enemy. And I have the power and ability to break those truths and those agreements that have been made. And so my message to any woman that might be listening to this, a mom of our ambassador program, or just a woman who's trying to like find herself on the other side of it, today's the day. Wow. I dance, just so you know, when I get emotional. It's just my way. But that was, I guess, my mic. Today's the day. But today's the day for all of us. And I think that age is a number. And I plan on doing a lot more. And I always say I feel like I'm just getting started because it's no longer going to be hidden. So, wow. I may wipe those two little things that just fell down my face. Don't know why.
Should we do a wah wah wah?
Wah, wah, wah. I really am serious about that, about the buzzer. This has been a beautiful conversation. It's been a powerful conversation. And I think the start of many that need to continue to be had. And, it's beautiful spending time with you.